Dear Rector, dear President, dear Mayor, dear Governor, dear professors and students, all of you colleagues, because I'm a university professor, Excellencies, let me start by thanking the Rector, Federica Moguilloni, for inviting me to address this prestigious college, an institution that goes back to 1949. In you, Madam Rector, I recall all those who benefited from the excellence provided in Bruges and Natuna. Allow me to highlight also the address by Herman van Rompuy, first President of the European Council. He played an important role in the choice of this year's promotion pattern, and I thank you very much for it, on behalf of all the Portuguese. A word also to Mr. Dirk de Vouw, Burgomaster of Bruges, with my recognition for his inspiring words. It's a beautiful city. It's one of the things I missed in my life is not having studied here in Bruges. What a pity. I'm too old to restart my life. But I should, at the end of the presidency. And to Mr. Karl de Cauwa, Governor of the West Flanders province, that really very wise personality chose to have a second home in Portugal. Another one to the Portuguese Commissioner, is over there, and I think also some Portuguese members of the European Parliament. Thank you all for your presence and remarkable service to Portugal and Europe. An example of how important is for us Portuguese, the European Parliament, is the fact that two MPs and a former MP are presidential candidates for the elections of January 21. My second word is for you, dear students. There is a legend about the College of Europe. It's a life-changing experience. When I was 79, I visited as university professor. The Portuguese, they were 10 students of the Paul-Henri Spaak promotion. The first one after the accession of Portugal to the then European communities. I was impressed by this college's very special atmosphere and strong identity. Here, questions matter more than answers, preparing you for the future. But beyond your own, it is the future of our common home, Europe, that you bear in your hands. You are the hope of generations to break the damaging concept that the European Union is just an idea of the so-called elite. It is not. It must not be. It must be a shared project of peace and prosperity and social justice, a token of human values and dignity. You'll be the ambassadors of such a token. My third word is for the professors. What a superb job you do. You are also the key to the success of this college. Let me finally address you, dear Federica Moguilloni. What a start. What a start. You are already popular before being popular. Having been Europe's voice in the world, you embody the spirit of a college created after the Second World War to prepare young people to a new era of economic and social progress, security, and peace. All the best for you. As the Italians say, brava. You are brava. Dear students and very soon colleagues, your patron this year is not the first Portuguese, but the second ever chosen by this prestigious college. The first in 57, a long, long time ago, when there was still the French, the Belgium, and the Portuguese colonial empires, was Prince Henry the Navigator that led at the end of the 14th and beginning of the 15th century the adventure of crossing the seas, not the Mediterranean Sea, but the Atlantic, the Indic, and the Pacific Oceans. Henry the Navigator, son of a Portuguese king and of an English duchess, is a symbol of modern ages, although the oceans and globalization remained endless challenges. Mário Soares is a symbol of contemporary age, someone that saw in the 40s and 50s of last century how Portugal, Europe, and the world would evolve. The College of Europe could not have made a better choice. As a person, he was a fighter. He was a brave fighter. He was a passionate fighter. One of his motto was simple: only those who give up fighting are defeated. He never gave up fighting. His life was an example of that motto. Young communist, founder of the Socialist Party, strong opponent to the dictatorship for 3.5 decades, so many times deported, in jail and in exile, himself and his wife, until the revolution of the 5th of April, 74, when he returned to Portugal in a train called Freedom, thinking that Europe was Portuguese destiny. Fighter during the revolution against all kinds of dictatorships, military, civilians, coming from both far right or far left. Prime Minister that signed in 77 the accession of Portugal to the then European communities. First civilian elected President of the Republic with universal vote and re-elected with more than 71% of votes, and a repeatable achievement for a unique personality. But more, much more important than his personal qualities, cleverness, culture, intuition, empathy, openness, knowledge of human nature, visionary understanding of humanity, moral and physical courage, were his values, those he never ceased fighting for: freedom, human rights, democracy, democratic socialism, and Europe. Opening this same ceremony, the 3rd October 77, Mário Soares justified demand for accession presented 6 months earlier as follows, in French, as it was declared. L'adhésion est ainsi, pour nous, l'indispensable saut qualitatif qui construira à la fois un solide rempart pour nos institutions récemment établies et la voie irréversible pour un destin que nous voulons partager. And it is so inspiring, his continuous fight for these values today, the 13th of October 2020, at a decisive moment in the world and in Europe. He fought for freedom, for human rights, for democracy. And freedom, human rights, democracy are at stake today in the world, but also in Europe. The crisis in so many party systems, or in so many social and economic partners, in nowadays mediatic and inorganic democracies, the incapacity of change in the so-called catch-all parties, then cartel parties, the emergency of new issues, new challenges, new media, and also new social, economic, cultural needs and unfulfilled dreams paved the path towards so-called populisms and illiberal democracies. In a sense, like 100 years ago, It is the weakness, the failure, the lack of belief, but also the lack of response to popular, legitimate expectations that create the ambience for anti-systemic, selfish, xenophobic movements, parties, and leaders. It is our fault. It is no use blaming the newcomers for what they receive as a gift from the outdated, incompetent, feeble movements, parties, and leaders of a vanishing time. Mário Soares never gave up in his fight for social justice, in his democratic socialism vision of politics and economics, and also fight for social cohesion. Social justice and social cohesion are at stake today in the world, but also in Europe. The pandemic we are still living in showed us how much we needed a healthy European Union. The economic and social crisis we are wanting to overcome through recovery and resilience plan and financial multi-annual framework asks us short-term measures involving social cohesion action against increased and unbearable poverty, inequalities, and asymmetries. But asks us much more than that. Structural changes, green and digital transition, reindustrialization, different approaches to economy and society, and refusal of all kinds of non-transparent and corrupted institutions. Otherwise, we, Europeans, shall miss a key opportunity to lead in all those domains, and will deepen the cleavages that weaken us and weaken each one of our democracies. Mário Soares was, until he left us, a vibrant European. Europe, for him, was not only the essential reason why Portugal and we Portuguese built a stable and long-lasting democracy, but an irreplaceable power in the complex geopolitical world context. Mário Soares lived throughout his life, in his intense way, the fall of bipolarism, the impossible rise of a perfect or then even imperfect unipolarism. And recently, nowadays, this unpredictable mixture of multipolarism without multilateralism, emergent new bipolarism, and eruption of unilateralism and protectionism. In this so awkward combination, so many global dramatic challenges, climate change, war, hunger, migrations, refugees, healthcare, education, women empowerment, face anti-multilateralism, suspicions against international institutions, defiance against international law, altogether with unilateralism and protectionism. With a new bipolar system slowly emerging from the very trade and political war, no longer the bipolar system of last century. As the Eastern Pole is converting itself into a regional power, no longer a global power. Anyway, with large influence in Europe, Near and Middle East, Mediterranean, Northern and Central Africa, strong in cyber and political influence, less strong in an economic long-term sustainability for a decisive military power. But a regional power that never forgets and never forgives the downgrading caused by geopolitical evolution. And another Eastern Pole making a slow twist from a regional power into a global one, and from economic expansion into an intelligence and geopolitical one. Europe, it was one of Mário Soares' deepest convictions and worries, should be the prospective power able to balance the world, to predict, to act in preemptive missions, to anticipate, to break the deadlocks, to affirm the values that make the difference between oppression and liberty, ignorance and knowledge, human dignity and contemporary forms of slavery. Together with our traditional allies, such as United Kingdom and United States of America, even when they hesitate in choosing their allies or being consistent in their commitments. And we do want a post-Brexit agreement and an effective, humanistic, democratic, transatlantic alliance. Dear Rector, dear professors, dear students, other Portuguese professors, students, guest speakers came to this House of Culture and gave us their testimony about freedom, human rights, democracy, social justice in Europe. José Manuel Durão Barroso, just invested President of the European Commission, delivered the opening lecture in November 2004 for the Montesquieu promotion. Prime Minister António Costa was here opening the Simone Weil promotion in 2017, and he recalls it in a very grateful way. He was telling me today, by phone of course, well, I never forgot this experience in the College of Europe. And António Guterres, a long-lasting friend of the 60s and 70s, came here as Prime Minister and back again as Secretary General of the United Nations, as he did today, to speak of someone he got to know very, very well, as I did, as our generation did, Mário Soares. António Guterres, who is fighting every day for the need of multilateralism, at the time of so many disillusions and disappointments of so many billions of citizens around the world. Even now, during the pandemic, with the half-truth, the savage struggle for sanitary materials and equipments, the non-cooperative actions, and the egoistic attempts of using vaccines as weapons of political competition. It would be ridiculous when it not signs of behaviors we cannot accept. Mário Soares would never, ever accept it. That is why he could easily understand what Hannah Arendt, last year's promotion patron, once wrote. Out of solidarity, men and women would establish a community of interest with the oppressed. That is why he dreamed of a free Portugal in a strong and united Europe, not an Europe where the fundamentals are forgotten just for the sake of short-term conveniences. That is why his legacy will be a landmark for our presidency of the European Council next January the 1st. A presidency implementing next generation EU, working for quicker recovery, stronger resilience, universal European presence, dialogue with Africa, India, Mercosur, social summit, and most of all, desire of closing the gap between European institutions, European politicians, and European citizens. That is why Mário Soares was, is, and will be so inspiring for you too, dear students. And now I stop for a while to tell you how moving this ceremony is. Moving because we are living still a pandemic period. Moving because you know all the difficulties you had to face. We have to face all over Europe, all over the world. Moving, it is my first opening ceremony this year. Tomorrow will be the second one in Coimbra, our oldest university with 730 years of life. but just with 60 or 70 persons, and only a few students. It's moving to see you here. It's moving to see the new rector starting this way. It's moving to see that we want and we shall overcome this period, so difficult period, psychologically, socially, economically, politically, for every family, for every one of us, for every one of you. Well, looking at you, having been university professor for 46 years, I do understand what you're feeling at the age of 20, 22, 25, 28, 30. One is a dreamer, an impatient dreamer, a potential activist, wanting to change, to innovate, to break through, to fight for values, to fight for people of flesh and bones, to make a new world happen, to make a strong and leading Europe happen. As Ursula von der Leyen said in her speech in the European Parliament and repeated in the Portuguese Council of State 2 weeks ago, in what we all expect will be a new European cycle to shape a better way of living for the world of tomorrow. That's her saying. If you really want to be future, and a much better future, Mário Soares is a very, very inspiring patron. That is also why, dear rector, dear students and professors, it was a privilege for me to deliver this opening address to the 2020-2021 promotion, the Mário Soares promotion. For once, I felt many, many decades younger. Thank you.